Thank you, Zoom. I'm unmuting this. All right, so I'm going to give you about, actually, it would probably be helpful if I shared with you the process for tonight for the micro lesson. So, and I'll do that in two ways. So the first is just, I verbally described this, I think this is on the syllabus maybe, but just summarizing what are these micro lessons overall, and we'll do 3 or 4 of them. And then the next slide is tonight, how it's going to look. So just in general, to frame micro lessons, I would say the main goal would be for you to practice in a low stakes, kind of fun environment. Practice designing and executing learning, period. Like I want that, I want it to be that. You won't be assessed on how perfect your lessons are. You won't be assessed on whether your visuals align with your stated learning outcomes. You won't be assessed on whether your assessments assess the stated learning outcomes. This is more about getting you to think about designing learning in some of the big areas that are super important. And the first one is, we'll do 4 of them. You'll teach them to 3 or 4 classmates during class. The first one, that's tonight, something amazing, something interesting. Second one, and we won't talk too much about it, but something small and specific, like a really small chunk you're going to teach. Third will be about assessment. Fourth, usually there's a lot of flexibility in that. So I probably ought to just put ... under number 4. So we'll do 4, at least 3, probably 4. And what do they look like? So you'll have 3 to 5 minutes for the first one. The last ones will kind of build up in time. The last ones will be 10 to 15 minutes of time that you're doing your teaching. You prepare them in advance, putting all the materials. And one of the pieces of advice that I want to, I think I mentioned this last week, but I'll mention it again a couple times. Staying enrolled as much as possible is beneficial. So instead of saying, at this point in the lesson, I would, blah, 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 instead of talking about it, just do it. And as learners, you don't want to be, I think just be sincere learners. And if the person who's doing the teaching is teaching first grade students, then try to think like a first grader, to the best of your ability, but as close to being as real as possible and staying enrolled. That is probably the number 1 piece of advice I can offer you. And again, why do we do this? Low stakes and fun, but with a kind of a serious bent towards reflection and learning how to design learning experiences. So I don't know where folks' levels of stress are, but I guess I'd just say again, like, your assessment is not based on correctness. Your assessment is based on, do you put some effort into it? Are you prepared? Period. Not do you get it right? Because the follow-up and the feedback, that's where the learning, I think, most occurs. So that's kind of that's what micro lessons are overall. And then for tonight, 6, 8, 10, 12. So it'll be groups of 4. And the way it'll break down, so each person will have about 10 minutes total. $10 minutes total time. And in that 10 minutes, so like, there's 4 people in our group. And so it's Lexi and Jennifer and, oh God, what?
It's what you thought Lexi's name was.
Last week, like I remember that. What does it begin with?
Same letter, L. Flower.
That's not Luna. Lily. So Lily, Jennifer, and Lexi and I are all in a group. So I have 10 minutes. The first minute or two, I will be introducing my micro lesson. I will say, Lexi, Lily, and Jennifer, can you look at my visuals and see if they're effective visuals? Or can you look at like how fast I talk? Can you look at how clearly I explain things? Can you look at blah, blah, blah? So you're going to introduce your lesson and what is specifically a specific area that you would like feedback on. And I would urge you to resist the temptation to say just anything, because most of us, when we do these things, if we've done any teaching, which most of us have, know that there are things that we have nailed or that we have strengths in, and know that things that we wonder about or worry about or just know we could do better. So you'll get a chance to introduce your lesson and mostly, essentially, like, what do you want feedback on? Then you'll deliver your micro lesson, 3 to 5 or 6 minutes, and then there'll be time for peer feedback. So I would say, okay, I'm doing a lesson on how the dinosaurs died, and I would love some feedback on whether the story that I tell or the kind of the narrative makes sense to you. And I tried to put it together in a way that makes sense, but I'm not sure that it does. So that's what I want feedback on. And then I do the lesson, blah, 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 and then at the end, we'll do peer feedback, and I'll share with you in a second what that'll look like. And there'll be 3 groups here. Each group should have a time baron. That is the person in charge of making sure that folks take about 10 minutes each. And this is something totally optional, but it might, I don't know. I don't want to push it, especially the first lesson. But you can either use your own devices or you can use a single device. But one of the most, I think, helpful and reflective things is to watch yourself teach. And so if you want to, I'm not going to require this. I'm not going to do anything but say it can be super effective in terms of learning about teaching is to record yourself. So if you want to assign someone that role, great. Someone who records all of them, great. Or each group might be like, look, when I start my lesson, I'll just put my phone where it can see me and I'll do the recording. And that's that. So Jennifer might say, I don't want to record. I just want to do it. That's fine too. So there's no requirement that you record or upload. The uploading thing came from when we're remote. Folks actually appreciated that. That was one thing that folks appreciated, is having a place where they could see the micro lessons of others. We're not going to do that. I'm not going to, at least now, unless you think it'll make sense in future micro lessons. I'm not going to put them all in one place, because I think that'd be unfair to spring on you right now. But yeah, so bottom line is, if I wanted to record it, either I take my phone out and I stick it where it can see me and I press record, or I say, hey, Lily, can you be the group's recorder, and just we'll figure out a way, like you just airdrop it or email whatever video, upload it to Cloud, upload it to Canvas. We can figure that all out. So those are the roles in each group. And in terms of the feedback portion of things, what it's going to look like, it's pretty straightforward. Like I say, I would love for feedback on the narrative. Does it make sense? Is it easy to follow the story of how the dinosaurs died? Like the specific steps on day 1 versus day 10 versus day 1,000 after the KT event, killed the dinosaur event, whatever. So if that was it, then your feedback, and I'll share the form in a second, specific to the person's look for, and then just kind of other general feedback, including what you appreciated about the micro lesson, and then things you wonder about or questions that you have. And the form, and I got to get this printed out and to you. is basically that. So you'll have whoever's doing the teaching. So, you three would put Tom, and you'd say, look for, it'd be whether the narrative makes sense or however you want to word it. And then that's just something to track it's just a form to track feedback and give it a little bit of structure. And I'll get that to you after you do your prep, but I wanted to get this because it might influence how you just do your last minute preparations for the micro lesson. So any questions? And we'll make our groups in just a minute, but besides like who are the groups, any questions generally or thoughts or suggestions?
Do you have speakers?
Yeah, I'm going to print it in just a second. Yep. I don't yet. And in fact, I may need to borrow you to do that. Yeah, this remote thing, I'm in the office so little that I don't even know if I've set up one of my devices. I don't remember which one it is, but any other questions, suggestions, thoughts, etc. Okay. Well, let me do this. Let me give you about 10 minutes. It's 6:15-ish now. Let's say we get started at 6:30 with the actual micro lessons. And in that time, I'll be trying to print this up and then also just bopping around if you have questions for me. Great. If you want to talk to your colleagues, great. If you want to just work by yourself, great. If you have other stuff to do, great. If you want to go into another room and practice what you're going to say, great. All great. All right. Julia. I'm just testing myself. Okay, all right. Taking off a little bit. Got keys. I'm going to do it by IP address first.
Wait, I am too. You can look up like STEM activities with an hour. Oh, wow. I stole mine straight off of Mystery Done. It was actually a lesson that I taught in a class I was subbing in, and I was like, this is so easy, I'm gonna do this. I knew that, don't you have to like pay for Mystery Done or something? You do, but if you look up stuff while you're on the teacher's laptop, while the kids are at PE, then you get it free. Well, I do not have that.
And place manually. Come on now. I just took a picture of the IP address, so I'm going to try it. Sometimes it. Awesome. Thank you very, very much. All right. Okay. IP address. Oops. Oh. Okay. It's taking so long, it's hard to say. But I think I'll, in the interest of time, it's okay, I'll just share it with you. And then if you're able to do this.
Do you have my?
Let's see. Good to get it. Oh. Let's see if we can get that on.
No, but you can,
Oh, that's all right. I'll email it to you.
yeah, yeah.
What's the best address to do that?
Are you at Gmail? So
Yeah.
Marina.
Yep.
Dot.
Marina dot.
Excuse me, yeah. Let me check.
Yeah, you go.
Easier.
That'll be way easier. Thank you. Sorry about the delay, folks. In my absence in being able to help you, but. All right, awesome. Thank
many?
you. 15, please. All right. Well, while we do that, any don't have any questions you want to ask? I mean, I think y'all are good. It really is just mucking around, and having fun, and little things, and hopefully. Good. All right. We have 2 secondary folks in here, right? Okay. So it's Jacob and don't tell me. Taylor, did I hear that? I didn't know that. All right, so Jacob and Taylor. So you will definitely be together in a group. And then is there anyone who kind of thinking about middle school or secondary, or we're gonna have 3 different groups, and I think our class is small enough, we're not gonna be able to do like all the first grade folks together. But is there anyone who is thinking, oh, I'm not sure, whether I'll do middle school or elementary, but considering middle school? Anyone? All right, I'll just do random then. God, this thing is slow. Why don't we do then, and y'all can get in separate groups, in separate rooms if it's helpful. I would guess that 2 groups could be in here. You could probably do all 3 groups in here, but if one of you wants to leave and go across the hall, there's a desk where 4 people can sit. You're welcome to do that. But let's do Jacob and Taylor. And wait, I thought you were Taylor. You're not also Taylor?
No.
What does it begin with?
Jay.
Jay? You sure? Yes, you're sure.
Simpson.
What?
Simpson.
Jessica.
Yeah.
Jessica and Jennifer. Let's say with Jessica, Jennifer, Taylor, and Jacob. You'll be one group. And then if you want to move, that's fine. And then we'll do Lexi and Julianne and what does it begin with?
I honestly don't, I feel like you haven't done my name that much. Allie.
I see her. No, I wasn't. No,
Yeah.
no, that was my like. No. But I've seen. It's Simpson is your last name though. Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's an S though.
Yeah, it is an S.
Yeah, no, I've seen this. Okay, so Lexi and Julianne and Allie and Lacey. Macy, 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 I knew it. All these L's. Okay, so you'll be another group. And then the last group will be Marina and Lily. And begins with a oh. Olivia. So, and then who doesn't have it? And it begins with a Hannah. All right. This is getting less bad, isn't it? So it'll be Hannah, Olivia, Anita, and Lily will be another group. And hopefully we'll get these printouts soon. Any questions before we went? So I'll remind folks. So of those, I know Marina's not here, but in the Taylor and Jay's group, do anyone want to be in Taylor and Jay's? Right, 3 J's and a Taylor. Do you have anyone want to be the time baron? Just keeping track of trying to keep track of everyone being at 10 minutes. Thank you, Jacob. And then in the Hannah, Lily, Olivia, Marina group, anyone? Thank you so much, Marina. So for the anyone want to be a time baron? Olivia, you'll be a time baron, and then Alexi, Julianne, Jennifer, and who else is in your group? Jessica, Jennifer. Yeah, it's the 4 of you, right? Oh, no. It's Allie and Julianne and Lexi and Macy. All right, and which of the 4 of you all is going to be the time baron? Thank you, Allie. There we go. And then for you all. All right, so it is about 6:35 now. And just so you know, for my role, I know this is what I'll be doing. I'm going around and I'll have my iPad and I'm writing things. I'm doing that mostly so I can remember to say, hey, there's one really cool thing I saw. I'm not writing it down like, you know, like, oh, Jessica really screwed something. Like that's, I am absolutely, I'm not even close to looking for like things that don't go well. I am simply looking for things to share that I think others would want to hear about. That's what I'm writing down tonight. So sorry. Oh, wait, let me try. It's Marina and Lily, and I forget who's in your group, but I know everybody. Olivia, are you in that group? And then also Hannah. Nice. Okay, so it is 6:35 now. So let's say with 10 minutes a person plus a little bit of transition time. Let's say let's target 6 or 7:20 as our ending time. And let's go have fun. Pretend I'm not there when I stop in. And again, just as realistic as you can be.
Do you want us to tell you the time or just keep it?
No, no, I don't. Whoa.
Yeah, it's okay. I could just forget it on Monday. Do you want to take here? You can if you want. Oh, no, I'm okay. Okay. I can. I thought someone was just like moving. Well, like the girl that got hit by a car, like our first class. Weird. I know. Like have an activity. Or like
You guys aren't doing it. I didn't bring the materials for you to do this, like crayons and scissors and stuff.
we'll just go with it.
Yeah, this would be like if I was doing it. Yeah. Okay.
So my lesson plan is focused on the second language. And I try to use something that I already applied in my real life when I was teaching English in Brazil. It was designed for an elementary classroom and actually pre-K because the students might be at age 4 max.
So we're 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
I was like, no, it's
Not this
supposed to act.
yeah. So they are already learning about dinosaurs in its differences. And in this specific class, I'm planning to adapt. It's weird because I already did, and I'm talking in the future, but anyway. So they will think about, reflect about their understanding about pterodactyls, and like it's not a dinosaur, but it's a flying reptile, and they will make the difference between a real dinosaur and that, like the Diplodocus or the T-Rex, which are real dinosaurs. And they will be like, why this is a science class, because it's a topic that most of them appreciate, and it's important to them to understand the beginning of everything. So, like, we have top dinosaur science at the classroom, and they also appreciate to learn about that. And so, I submitted this text of the lesson. First, they will be in the circle time, and then I'll present flashcards and explain to them to look and, oh, what's that? And figure if someone already knows, or if they don't, try to introduce to them the new word and make them repeat. Because again, it's a second language. English as a second language class, which I'm familiar with. What else? I also plan to play, before like discussing about that, play a memory game with them about the dinosaur, so they can have a little fun before they go to the next activity, to review activity. And then I have the material here. This is the memory game. Oh, so cute. They love it, and I applied that. Like, I printed out many different memory games, and I divided them in short groups, like 3, 3, and 3. So they could be in small groups playing. I could observe them and watch if they know, because some groups they mess up with the memory games because of their age, but others they were really like concentrated and competitive to be the winner and have more cards by the end. And I had a book material. Let me show you. So the T-Rex and the pterodactyl, and they are supposed to color, and it should be something personal. Like all of them have the worksheet, but I plan to have like glitter and glue and to make this fun for them. Like, and I also have
So Marina, can I ask a question?
sure.
So is this something, are you describing what you would do, or are you gonna actually do it with these, with?
I'm
Folks
kind
can-
of describing, but I explained that when I
Typed it up,
accepted
right.
my submission, that
Yeah, so sorry.
it's something that I already did.
Okay,
I'm talking in the future, which is weird, but it's something
Gotcha.
that I already did with my.
gotcha. And this is why this one is, like the first one, is kind of like, just do whatever you want. So in the future, like the hope is that you're instead of talking about teaching something, you're actually teaching something.
Mhm.
But if you're not ready for that, that's fine too. Like,
You mean creating a new thing?
yeah, well, like for, like, so this is the first micro lesson, you'll do 2 or 3 more.
Mhm.
So for micro lesson 2, instead of describing it, my hope is that you'll do it. 'Cause that,
Pretend that I'm teaching?
yes, because that's
So
gonna,
like, we're gonna be your pre-K student.
yeah,
Oh, I
you're
didn't
the, yeah,
get that.
there's a student, and that's on me, I didn't convey that clearly enough, so I'm sorry. But that's also why we do this first short one, but you can
Sorry.
still get, no, please don't apologize, that is, like, sorry, if you say sorry, you could say sorry, I'm sorry that, Tom's not clear in the way he represents information. Like that, literally, that's kind of how I want you to think about it,
I
so,
just figured because last semester we took a class 8:03 a.m.
mhm,
and we did something like that.
Mhm.
And when we had the group discussion, we just described what we were supposed to do. So
right,
I just figured
gotcha.
that would be.
No,
the
that's
way.
fine, that's fine. But so for tonight, yeah, describe it and then get some feedback on what you'd be doing. But in the future, and you'll see this when other folks will, I hope, unless I was equally unclear for everyone. The goal, like, is to practice teaching and, in a really short, not that high stakes kind of way. So please, I hope you're not feeling like, oh, I messed this up. You didn't. That's on me, because this happens every semester, and I'm, for a couple of folks on their first micro lesson. So I try to clarify that, but obviously there's probably at least one other person in here who did the same thing. So that's not on you, that's on me. Okay,
So after they decided to what they teachers about coloring and decorating their dinosaur, I separated 2 videos, like dinosaur songs. I can show you. Okay, next time I will make it fun.
it's, when I'm not sticking around to listen, I'm doing some other stuff. Again, I hope you heard me say that's on me, not on you.
I know.
Okay, good.
They love that. Anyway, I'm not going to play all of it.
And by the way, one of the benefits of these is just discovering and sharing resources, like where did you get that video? Is it just YouTube generally, or? Was it-
Yeah, it's simple, super simple sound.
Gotcha,
It's a YouTube channel.
gotcha, okay.
I know I feel like I'm like, I got this straight off. of Doug, like,
Oh, Mystery Doug is,
fantastic.
you see that in the class, yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit this semester, but yeah, no problem, okay.
So I love to finish my classes with videos or songs because it's like, it's a way for them to summarize what they learned on that day because I can, if you like, I don't know which age you like to teach, but for the younger, they finish the class like singing and saying the different dinosaurs' names, which is lovely. And it's also a way for me to check if they are like associating the content or if they know how to. Anyway, so basically it was that. And the best part is to see their worksheets later because like in the end of the year, we made a portfolio of all the worksheets that they had made during the year. And we have like a wall where for the day after they finish the activities, they can place their activities. So they stay the whole day staring at And like the coordinator passes and, look, Miss Lily, my dinosaur pink and purple and, and they love to show off. So, yeah, basically it's that. In short words, I'm telling y'all. Because I wish
Because I mean, we already know like you're not the only one to do that.
Yeah, I basically, I have like an activity and I didn't bring anything. It's also hard to think of something where I could afford to bring it in for 3 people and like, are we gonna sit here and cut and glue and bring scissors for everyone, like, for an activity, or like my other thing would be like, I could bring that in, but like cutting the tape that can execute and find materials and all that.
I'm like 3 to 5.
Right, and like how am I gonna teach it? And am I just sitting here talking about the term vocab words, or are we gonna do something after, but then I'm gonna run over the time?
Yeah, that's what I was like.
So it is a weird process. It's not like we have a whole day to like teach this thing, and like it's my day, next class is your day.
Yeah, do you remember that we had that before?
We wrote lesson plans.
Yeah.
but like,
I
we
basically
did
wrote like a
that.
lesson plan.
Did you?
We wrote lesson plans, talked about them, and got feedback on lesson plans, and it's like, oh, I was in this lesson plan, would I understand, and like, what would I change? So it's all weird. So you haven't,
I have heard that. I feel like it would be more beneficial for certain number of people with one, like sort of 4 people.
totally, and we actually like taught it instead of like,
It's hard to feel like I'm teaching 4th grade.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Do you want to share this feedback at the end or like after each individual person?
We just run through narrative while we're on it.
Come up on my face. Okay, my appreciation. I said song is very catchy and music helps things stay in kids' heads, so it's good addition, but I was just.
You were so.
And I took a note about like showcasing their work, like that makes me feel like their work is like valued and their work is important. And there's actually like a creative expression standard in early child development where when they take pride in like showing off their work, that's like showing that they're developing like a sense of self. So that was really cool. My question for you was, if your goal, your big learning objective is for them to learn this vocabulary about names of the dinosaurs, like, do you have a plan of like longevity? Because if you do this for one day, they might remember the vocab for that day. Or is it something like that's gonna be like a curriculum thread and it's gonna come back
It's
on?
on this case, it's a unit. So this was, I don't know, class 6 from the whole unit. And they, like, for 2-3 months, they will be learning about dinosaurs. And then,
Okay,
you know,
I see, I see. Well, good job.
I like the topic of dinosaurs. I wouldn't have like thought of that, and I think it's definitely age appropriate. Good time to like start talking about something that's like interesting to them, but it's also like the vocab can be complex, talking about like how they're different, like you said, like kind of categorizing them and finding similarities and differences. So,
we cry when we think about the dinosaurs.
yeah, that's like a very fun topic. And then I guess kind of piggybacking off of that, like, what are the goals, like specific goals or objectives of this lesson? I guess vocab you said is a big one. So.
It's a way to associate a thing that they like to play with, because we already have dinosaur toys at the classroom, and also a way for them to learn about stories of dinosaurs. And they are all the time talking.
That was like what I was saying, and
that your lesson was very student-based, and I liked that. I mentioned how you brought in things that they're familiar with, like the toys, and like that's gonna be really engaging for them because they already like have a basis of knowledge about it. So they're like, oh, that's what that actually is. Like that's the name for it. I didn't write down any questions because I didn't have the paper.
Don't take
No,
my-
oh my gosh, no,
I
I'm good.
have on my email.
It's okay. I'm already writing it down.
Are you
So
sure?
yes, I'm sure.
Appreciation week question.
Yeah. Well, now I know. No, I don't. It's okay. It's okay.
I'm gonna cry.
We do have 25 minutes left.
Okay, so we should move on. I can go next.
Oh, you wanna go next?
I don't really care. Okay, so I'll give you my intro. So am I supposed to intro for 10 minutes? I'm not intro.
You're speaking whole lesson. No, you're doing like whole lesson.
Although we have 25 minutes left.
Here, I'll just answer the last.
I'll put it this way. Well, the teaching should be less than 10, the feedback should be.
Okay, so you're fourth graders. Okay. So today we're going to be learning about the water cycle. Water is something that you've been surrounded with your entire life. So I want you to kind of dig on that background knowledge that you have. And I want you to tuck away the word cycle for a second. I just want you to be thinking about water because you know a lot about water. But today we're going to be talking about the water cycle. What is it and why does it matter? So again, like I said, or thinking about what we already know about water. I want you to be brainstorming a couple things in your head. I forgot. I'm an unprepared teacher. Okay. Okay, I'll keep this one. Okay, so back to the word cycle. We are going to take a look at a bicycle, or my interpretation of a bicycle. I'm a fourth grade teacher, I'm not an art teacher. So, bicycles. What do the wheels do on a bicycle? Raise your hand and tell me. Lily.
They spin.
They spin. So, the word cycle is in the word bicycle. Mine means two, just in case you're wondering. But cycle. Cycle goes around and around and around. So, the water cycle is when water is, it's the process of water going around and around and around on our planet Earth here. So, there are many steps of our water cycle. There are condensation, precipitation, collection, and evaporation. So we are going to be learning more in depth about that today. But first, I want you to think about where are some different places on Earth that we see water. There are many different forms of water. Think about the world around you. Brainstorm. Raise your hand when you have one. Water, Olivia. Rain is a kind of water, Lily.
Our water bottle.
Your water bottle, you can drink water. I wonder what are some other forms of water? Is all water
My ice rink.
an ice rink? Ice can be solid,
Not the water.
frozen.
Oh, dang it. Oh, the way it is these days.
Okay, so I put a couple of examples up here. There's water that you can drink, like we talked about. There's water in the ocean. There's ice. There's puddles. There's rivers, waterfalls, and there's clouds. Does anyone know that clouds are made of water? I thought they were made of. Yeah, they look like it, but they're made of water.
Wait, what was that you said?
I thought they were
Really?
made of pot. Look at that.
She's pretending that she's a.
Good, I got it, I got it. I'll tell you why I asked that. I didn't hear it, so I'll tell you. Anyway, let's go, carry on.
Okay, I also have a song. We are going to follow my raindrop friend through the water cycle.
What is the water cycle anyway? How does it rain? Where does it come from? Water goes up, water comes down, water goes up, water comes down. Water cycle, round and round and round and round. Water cycle.
bicycle.
Water everywhere, but did you know it's also in the air? The sun heats the water. This I am sure, and it becomes a gas we call water vapor. Water vapor travels up. Listen, everyone, it's a living process we call evaporation. So the vapor goes up and gets cold in the sky and turns back into water up there so high. These tiny water drops form into clouds that keep growing and making bigger clouds. Clouds are made from water. Listen,
We don't have to watch
it's a living process.
It's a long video. Wonderful.
Thank you. That's very groovy.
Okay. Repeat after me. Evaporation.
Evaporation.
Water changes to gas.
Water changes to gas.
I was supposed to.
Yeah. It helps you get it in the head. Condensation.
Condensation.
Water collects as clouds.
Water collects the clouds.
Precipitation.
Precipitation.
Water falls from the clouds.
Water falls.
Collection.
Collection.
Water is being stored in the earth.
Water is being stored in the earth.
Does all of this water look the same? Does steam feel the same as rain? So like when you get out of the shower and the mirror is all steamy, does that hot water in the air feel the same as when the rain falls down?
No.
No. What's different about it?
Some of it's hot and some of it's cold.
Some of it's hot, some of it's cold. That's a good point. I find that rain's a little thicker than the steam that's in the air. So now we have an exit ticket. I want us to be able to match the steps of the water cycle to the boxes here. So I see some water in the ground and being stored. What do we see here? What phase of the water cycle is this? Collection. Okay, so it's getting hot. The water is rising. The water is rising into water vapor. Evaporation. The water is cooling into clouds. I wonder what step this is. Condensation. Oh no, it's coming down. What step of the water cycle is this? Precipitation. Wonderful job. You can exit now.
Good.
Thank you. If you wanted to look at my lesson plan, here we are.
I read a paragraph from my lesson plan. I was like, this is what I'm saying.
I'm like sweating
But,
right now.
It's really
actually,
hot in here.
all of my questions for you ended up hitting on at a point. in time. Some of the things I added, like we were looking at the song. I was like, oh, this would be like a perfect thing to like assign a dance to, because like movement helps with memory, but then you were one step ahead of me, like you did that already. So, yeah, that was really good. I like that.
I sure affirmations in the beginning and you're like, you already know so much about it before we started, so you could like.
Well, sometimes it can be like overwhelming, you
Yeah,
know,
when you
started
started
talking
talking topic, it's
yeah.
like, oh, like it's always hard first then, you're like, you already know, like, you already know stuff about water, you know, and like, allowing students to think for themselves was really nice, and the analogy to high school was good, it's always nice, so like, one of the things about it, I found that eventually, bye. And yeah, all the questions that I had.
There's a couple reasons of what they said. I noticed you're like, you got visual examples, not only the video, but the images as well. Because this helps students to visualize what they are learning, and mainly for kids, it's really important to, oh, that's what she's talking about. And also, we have different kinds of learners in our classroom, and it's nice to have how do you, yeah, how do you,
Auditory and like kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's why I
Yeah.
added like the repeat after me and like
like
the
that.
physical
Yeah.
part as
we
well.
call that also physical response, so you do it and then like demonstrating and we repeat, and we could do the movement and also talk the word, and when you want to confirm for the exit path, that,
Yeah, the exit ticket.
yeah. it helped me to remember like, oh, this means that, yeah. So, yeah.
Yay, well, I'm glad that helped you.
And I like how excited you sounded.
Oh, thanks. I get really excited when I get to teach things, even though you all already know.
Do you want to teach fourth grade?
No, I don't really, that's like my lifelong question, so I don't know. I like
also
the
doing
younger
a fourth
kiddos.
Grade one. I love 3%. I really like that.
That's a good age.
They're like
Vegan, like,
little adults.
I was in a kindergarten classroom last week and I was like, this is just, they're too young. They can't wipe their nose, they need to go in the bathroom, like, it's too young.
I love the
to
little
play
ones.
with them, but I do not want to have 20 of them running around and we have to just get, everything is a transition or getting their attention. And it's not for me, it takes a certain.
It's
patience,
hard,
so
it's
that-
harder, but
It's hard in a different way.
lovely to see how fast it learns. I was in first grade yesterday and I did an interview with a student and she's sick. She looked at me at the end and I said, thank you, Dania, for your help. And she looked at me back and said, it wasn't time to collaborate with you. And I was like,
Okay.
what?
I just wanna-
The transition from kindergarten to first grade is so
It's
hard.
big, it's a big.
And
I didn't know, our kindergarten is required in New Hampshire, so it was like,
I think, no, I think it is, right?
no, in the class I was in,
Preschool, I don't think preschool is.
no, kindergarten is not
Are you
required. Five of our
sure?
students had not gone to kindergarten, my class teacher, and she was.
Kindergarten is government funded, it's not legally.
Yeah,
required.
it's
Like
not
if you
required.
don't
We had
send your child to
five,
kindergarten, you're not gonna get.
5 students out of
Wow.
19 who had not ever been to school before. This first grade
First
classroom, which
grade?
is huge, they didn't have the social skills, they didn't have, they couldn't even have a conversation with you without being like, they're talking over their friends, there's a lot of skills that you get from being in a classroom with that first year. and They
Absolutely.
definitely provide those skills.
So when it's mandatory for a child to be at school here?
First grade legally, but like, that's the
6
New
years
Hampshire,
old, right?
yeah. I don't know, like,
It's for.
but this isn't like
It
all the
should be
US.
for.
Yeah,
For
like
whole country.
Massachusetts,
Yeah,
Preschool is
preschool
like-
is like,
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not from Mass, but I just
I
found that
am,
also
yeah.
really interesting, like, I'm from Connecticut, and a lot of people that I know went to preschool, but kindergarten through 12 is the standard. But anyway, I just did the water cycle also, so if you want to go, then
Oh,
Come
sure,
back to
okay.
that.
All right, so you guys are also going to be fourth graders. And you're going to get 2 pieces of wax paper. So,
wow.
tomorrow.
What a good parent teacher.
Tomorrow, we are getting a big snowstorm. And I know because
Do you think we're gonna have a snow day?
I think we are going to have a snow day tomorrow. And I know because we live in New Hampshire, this is not the first snowstorm. Right? Raise your hand if you've seen snow and ice before. That's all of us, right? Because it's pretty cold where we live. And we know that snow and ice are made up of frozen water. So have you ever wondered why ice is clear but snow is white? They're both made up of frozen water, so why are they different colors? I'm gonna give you a moment to think about it. If you have any guesses or ideas as to why snow is white but ice is clear, raise your hand and we can do a share.
because snow is soft.
Snow is soft, so maybe having the texture can make it a different color.
Ice is wet,
Ice is wet,
so it's clear, like water.
so are you thinking that ice is more wet than snow?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Marina, do you have any ideas? No, okay. Well, to help us understand why snow looks white but ice looks clear, we are going to use some wax paper. So one of your sheets of wax paper is going to be your ice. So that sheet you can leave nice and flat right on the table. Our other sheet of wax paper is going to be our snow. So I want you to crumple it up into a little ball. And then maybe be gentle, because we don't want to rip it, unravel it a little bit, and then crumple it up again. Get it all nice and crinkled up. Alright, now we're going to very gently unfold
are crinkled sheets of wax paper. Then I'm going to get out my handy dandy flashlight so we can get an even closer look. So what do you notice about the color of the sheet that you crinkle up? We can.
This one's white.
Yeah. So now, one of our sheets of wax paper looks white and the other one looks clear. So what's the difference between our white one and our clear one? What did we do to the white one? How old are we? You're fourth grade. You're like 9.
We went.
Yeah, so we cleaned it up.
the little paper.
We made this sheet of paper all crinkled. So you see how this one is smooth, but now this one's all bumpy and rigid. So that is just like a snowflake. A snowflake is bumpy and rigid and has all these little twists and turns and nooks and crannies, where ice is smooth. So when light hits the snowflake, it bounces and reflects in all these directions and all the colors of light mixed together and makes it appear white. But because the ice is flat, it doesn't reflect as much, so it looks clear. So when the snow comes tomorrow, do you have a question? What's your question?
This is why we fell in the snow, in the ice so much. Because
could
we
be.
can't see.
Well, A, because you can't see it, and B, because it's smooth, right? Whereas snow, as we now know, snowflakes are bumpy and rigid. So when you see all that snow fall tomorrow, you're gonna know why the snow looks white, but the ice looks clear.
So, Miss Lily, you're saying that snow is crumpled up ice.
Yeah.
In a way,
I
I
love
love
that's
that.
actually a great conclusion. Alrighty. You're welcome. I just hated the group being so much larger. So many extra sheets of wax paper. Want to crinkle up some wax paper?
Yes, please. What do I get to do with it?
So we're comparing, this is snow versus ice. Why snow is white and
Oh.
ice is clear, even though they're both made up of frozen water. It looks better if you have like that's why I took up my phone flashlight, when you have like the light on it.
Yeah, but you get like, it's basically crumpled up versus.
Yes.
Ooh.
Snowflakes are all bumpy, crumpled.
Huh.
Ice is
Never-
smooth.
Are we adults now?
Yes, now we can go back to the adults. I'd like to thank History Done for sponsoring this.
Yeah, can I start?
Yeah.
So it was perfect how you started introducing the content by giving examples and like the thing that we can touch, because as kids we did that, like be in touch of the things that we are learning, to feel that, and it was nice to visualize that not only by snow and ice, but in a paper. And I think you were really clear and you gave students access to ask you. And you were really teaching.
Can I ask, have you, has just the structure of saying, hey, here's what I'd like you to look at, has that been helpful? Like.
Oh, I
really-
completely forgot to do that.
Okay,
online.
that's totally fine, that's why I'm asking.
What do you mean by that?
So like at the beginning, I asked everyone to say like, hey, while I'm doing the lesson, could you look at?
Oh, I forgot to do that.
Sounds like everybody does, right?
Okay.
That's why we do this, that's a run through, no worries, don't think another second about it. Carry on, you're having a really lovely conversation.
I found this activity and lesson very engaging. Also, like immediately giving us like hands-on to do, so I was like, I would think this would like stick in like a kid's mind, especially because they're connecting it to like tomorrow's weather. When the kids like see the snow the next day, they're gonna maybe like hopefully tell their parents what they did and like explain to the best of their knowledge why snow is white and the ice is clear, and it's a good way to like make connections, make this like meaningful outside. And yeah, I don't know any other questions after. is something I've never thought of before, so I was really like intrigued when you brought it up. But yeah, I'm astounded, honestly. Yes, I appreciated having like a physical visual representation as well. That was really helpful for my understanding as an adult. So I can only imagine that as a fourth grader, that would be like. My question, do we have background knowledge on like how reflection and everything
Yeah,
works
so
and like colors?
what my thinking was is at fourth grade, like if we did this as like a fun activity, they would have that pre-existing knowledge on light, like light being reflected and refracted.
Yeah, that was,
And also states of matter, like
Yeah.
understanding that like water is frozen.
that's all I have.
Alright, well, I can get rid of our wax paper. Let's go, you sort of made some art out of yours, you want to keep it?
No, fine. It's just flower.
Make a little,
Yes.
thank you, you're welcome.
All right, sorry to bore you guys. We're also talking about the water cycle.
I've never learned too much about the water cycle.
And so the ideal age I was thinking for this lesson is fifth grade. You get a little bit more in depth if I go into the vocab details, than the previous one we just had. So, okay. So I didn't write this as if I was going to teach it, so I'm just going to do that right now. So, all right, students. So we are going to be talking about the water cycle today. I want you to think in your head for a moment. What do you think the water cycle is? Use your background knowledge on what you know about water and cycles. See what you can come up with. Just think for a second.
You learned that this week. Is it water spinning?
That's a really good idea. What do you think? Water spinning?
Isn't it like when you drink water and then you pee and then you flush it and then it goes back to the ocean?
Wow, thank you for that idea. That's awesome. What do we think, class? That is a cycle of water. Any other ideas?
Yeah, I agree with Lily.
Yeah, you're right. The water
Like
cycle,
cycles on the washing machine
it just keeps going around.
and it has water.
It has water in it, and then you open it, and you don't see water. Your clothes might be wet, but you don't see water in there. So the water cycles somewhere else, and it comes back when you need it. Those were some great thoughts.
Sorry, did you go in? Have you pretended?
Alrighty, so those were all some really wonderful ideas. The water cycle is a continuous process, as we were coming up with, where water moves throughout the earth, the atmosphere, it goes from the land to the ocean, and comes right back into your water bottle. So all those ideas were excellent. We're gonna watch a little video now. The white's now off.
It all connects.
There we go. All the lessons are going together. Okay. All right. So after watching that video, we're starting to make some connections here. And I have this diagram we're going to look at. Okay. For the sake of time, anyway, talk all the time, how these go all around together. Okay, now that we've gone over some new vocab terms, we're going to practice applying them to our everyday lives. You're all gonna get 7 slips of paper, and you're gonna work with a partner, and you're going to try to figure out if this statement is condensation, precipitation, or evaporation. You're gonna use all of your knowledge from the video and work with your partner to try to figure out which category this falls into. So the example is on the paper slip, they'd be categorizing our a steamy bathroom mirror, a rainstorm, eyeglasses that have clouded over, drying clothes in the sun, water flowing water from the seam, etc. And then we'll go over the class. Okay, and then the challenge asks students, do you have any other examples that are, in addition to the ones that you were given, that relate to our everyday lives? And you try to figure out what phase of the water cycle that example is from. And then this is the activity that I had a little plate, and they would have this little water jar with them, kind of moves around, like they can like say what phase the water cycle is.
Oh, that's
It's
cute.
just like a nice little.
I like
idea.
how like the drop of the.
It just continues, yeah, and it just goes through the cycle to show it's continuous, and the same droplet of water is gonna be basically cloud to the groundwater, and I use like terms like groundwater is the water beneath the surface, saturating the soil, surface runoff, water that this sort of doesn't absorb that ends up in the ocean. Yeah, so that's basically of transpiration, I think, water that comes out of plants and like, yeah. So that was pretty much the lesson, and then he said not to worry about like assessments, so I didn't see that till after.
Not to.
It's really
Yeah.
hard because I had like,
I put those in my lesson.
I had like a worksheet.
I was like, it just feels like there's no end. Like you're just like,
Yeah.
okay. Like,
That's why
I
I just
had a
asked like
diagram
everything.
as well.
Sounds like I want it.
No, that's good, and the vocabulary one, that's actually take that back, because that's assessing knowledge, and that's not what we're doing, but anyways,
Like,
that's
like
the
you have
lesson.
to, like you have to assess to like move on.
Right.
that's why, like, when I was on, it's like, okay, like, like, there's no,
It just feels like.
there's like no
yeah.
losing.
I
And
love
like, especially because like at this point, we're all so used to like crafting and delivering full, complete
Oh,
lessons.
yeah, this seems
So to
so
take like a
half and
snapshot from
a
it.
3-minute thing, I can't even get that, like, yeah.
It's,
A 3 minutes was like, do I give you knowledge on the activity, or just do the activity, or just the lesson?
To demonstrate, to present.
Yeah.
Because describing it was very, we only have 3 minutes.
yeah,
I
I don't
couldn't even
understand
Like
Yeah,
that's
we
really
were
skills,
supposed
how
to-
we were able, like, there could be so short that we could talk about it for 2 minutes and do it for 11 minutes. But it how, not a make that you can execute and how the students do and talk about and learn from.
it's also like, I looked at with that one, and this is one reason I picked it, because the material was so easy, and like, I
Right.
literally just walked
It's
down to my
cheap,
kitchen
and
and
it's
ripped
would
off
be-
some black
But
paper.
something like a box for crayon. And like, also my audience is my audience. is people today, but like.
Oh my goodness,
Is it the whole class next to
Yeah.
it? How long are we gonna have to class?
So I didn't actually cut up paper and like, I know, I don't remember that. It's just the kind of like, this is the idea that I.
Yeah, I know, that's why I like did it all online, it was like, I'm not actually making it into all of it. What is like, what is?
No, it's really, it's hard. I said my appreciation, I like that you included share time for ideas. I also just had like your persona, like you had like really good like teacher communication for yourself. My one question is, and obviously like, I get why you would do this now because we're 3 college students, like not a class of. like,
And we're
third
not
graders.
being taken serious.
Right, but I think about like what you want to do while the video is playing, like would you want to stop it and be like, who can repeat back to me what precipitation is? Or like, just because like from my experience, if you just like let a video play and then
Yeah,
expect
I
them
can't
to
even
retain the
retain it.
information, because like half the kids like aren't even like watching the video.
No, yeah.
You know, like,
That's for
but
sure.
that's obviously something you're not gonna do right now, but just.
Appreciating the presentation and that you provided good explanation. There are many forms of media that you provided, and I said that like the group work was kind of, I said I liked your assessment and how it was group based.
Was that that'll be in about, just
I
a couple
basically
minutes.
talked with Rose here. The same thing that they did, but what I noticed that they didn't mention is a lot of the activity is running in the back. And also like providing a partner experience.
Yeah, I really like, we started talking about this stuff. Especially with science, because everything in science felt like I couldn't connect. It just, I left it and I think like, it's gonna snow tomorrow. This is like happening right now.
Yeah, let's go with that, huh?
Like, okay, like, what's, all these are examples that they can.
And
Definitely
that's
doesn't
one
cause I have
thing
all the
I
shit
like
in my
how
kitchen.
you provided on-time feedback, like Lily said her opinion and it's like, yeah, that's right. And it's like, it's totally related to what you said about connecting and making it's hard, for example, when you are not familiar, but you don't feel comfortable picking something, you compensate somehow. It's nice to do that.
No, I remember I was in,
Because I hate science and someone is not hearing that.
No. I don't think that's true. I think you don't appreciate how you learn science in school.
I hated my grades in science.
Yeah, but, like, who's not curious about the world? Like, who doesn't find it fascinating that, like, you know, like, I mean, like, that Dunkin' Donuts coffee could power an answer for a month? Like, that single thing, like, how fast, like, that's awesome, right?
what? I feel like that's not true.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that wild? It is.
It is wild. That is a wild
If we were able to, basically it's cold fusion. You may have heard cold fusion but yes, the most energy, like nuclear explosions, those are explosions that happen, or those are reactions where the molecules, like the electrons and actually the protons and neutrons, either get pulled apart or smashed together. That's where the big energy is. That's how a little nuclear bomb can create so much force. It's because the nuclear bonds within the atom are the ones that have the most energy. So we burn like propane, which is carbon and hydrogen. So we use the energy of bonds between atoms, but when we get inside the atom and smash them together or we split them apart, that's where the big energy is. And if we were able to figure out how to do that, to essentially smash those hydrogen and oxygen molecules, basically mostly the hydrogen, so that they fuse into helium, that's basically what the sun is. So there's a lot of hydrogen in there. And if we could figure out how to make that happen, that's a lot of energy.
That'd be big money
Ah!
So when I drink a dunk, can I go around saying I have the sun in my stomach?
You could. What? Say, no, but to go back to your point, Marina, like that's fascinating, right? Like you're like, what? Even if it's a little, you're like, I don't understand. That's kind of a cool idea. But yeah, I mean, when people say I don't like science, 99.9% of the time I've heard that they don't like school science. But science, learning about the world, figuring out how things work, that's pretty, like, there's some interesting questions, like, you know, why do these become nails and not hair? Like that's pretty cool. I mean, there's just a gajillion different questions. You can ask. Does that resonate, or am I putting words in your mouth? Yeah, sort of putting words in your mouth, or sort of resonate? Yeah. So then our jobs as teachers then is to find the interesting stuff and pass that on to our kids. As best we can.
I used to love science till fifth grade, and then the testing.
Yeah, so you like the science, you don't like the way it's graded or tested, or you don't like the school part. Is what it sounds like. Like the stuff of it though. Pretty awesome.
My biology major would be really cool in science.
I just don't like the math part of science.
Exactly. exactly. Like when you're saying like learning things about the world around you, like I agree. I think that's so fascinating. Like I would like love to learn about and like answer these questions. But I don't want to be the one to figure it out. That's
Right.
I want someone else
Well,
to figure
you
it out for
want,
me
so,
and just tell me.
yes, yes.
I don't know.
But listen, as elementary school science teachers, how much math are you gonna expect from your kids?
That's why I want to teach elementary school.
No, but that's the hook. That's how you can do it. That's how you keep it. All right, I gotta get the other group.
No, I love that. They're all fantastic students. I gave you a plus.
It's freezing right now.
It was so hot.
It was so hot in here,
Yeah, I was sweating.
You brought the chocolate.
Yeah, I need to get rid of some of this, so you guys can pass it around, take one or two.
Oh, you're
shit.
so cute.
I just literally, I didn't know that was open. I apologize.
No, it's only two.
Yeah.
Sorry if I froze people out. It was really hot in here.
Tom, is the remote up there?
The remote's over here. I don't know. It's interesting.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
You guys can take more than one. I bought a lot.
Does that make any noise?
You brought candy?
Next class I give you back.
You gotta do the whole thing.
But then I won't have enough candy. What?
It's part of our lesson.
It's both.
Oh, maybe it doesn't close when it's off, 'cause this.
Oh, you know what? It's
I
turned
don't
off.
think we need a heater.
But
I think it's.
with all the stuff that's going on in this building with the heat, I don't want to mess with it because I don't really know what's going on. And
Is that what that truck is outside?
yes, I think so. I think it's, yeah, it's a heat. Because it's somehow, it's a like a portable boiler because the radiators are delivering heat, but probably too much. But that also means the
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. The MVP.
it's just on, I think. All right. How the hell? First micro lesson, I gotta say, so in a second, I mentioned to each of you, we'll go through some post micro lesson feedback about, what worked about the process, what could we do differently, and what did you learn about designing micro lessons? We'll spend a minute or two on that, but before we do, I gotta just say, for whatever, maybe you're just the best class I've ever had, but this felt just like y'all got it in terms of mostly the helping each other out aspect of things, but also just embrace the process. And so like Lexi started, I'll just name it, if I don't name you, I'm sorry, I was around, I didn't see everyone, but just a couple things that I noticed. So Lexi just started with like an engineering challenge, like build a boat that floats, right, which was pretty cool. Taylor had candy. But not only that, a natural selection model, and I've taught, like science, like biology, and I've also taught about teaching science for a long time, and it's really hard to come up with an ideal model for natural selection. Like it's pretty rare to see, and I saw that there, which is cool. Let's see. Oh, Jessica did something like, the thing that struck me about yours is like solar energy matters. Like there was just like a visceral hook to that, like solar energy as a source of energy, which is part of your lesson. Just there's like this matters, like to the world aspect to it, which I thought was cool. What else? Who had the I didn't write the name down. Who had the picture of the different types of getting matter and energy? Was that? I think it was either, was that you, Macy? Like, sorry, so let me take care of it. There was like plant, human. And that was you, yeah, that was really, Macy has, did you make that?
Yeah.
It was really nice, just example of where we're going with our class content next, which is how does stuff become us? Where do we come from? And she constantly referred back to it, no matter what the source, whether we eat plants or we eat animals that eat plants, or we eat animals that eat plants. It originally came from plants and it originally came from the air. But the visual supported your verbal. I thought that was really nice. Oh, Julianne did a nice job of like before showing the video of like, here's the questions I want you to think about. And then like the Marina, Olivia, Lily, Nacy group. Right, just there was just the dynamic there. I mean, the dynamic was great, but particularly I noticed the first gradedness simulation of some of you, but then also just the authenticity of just the conversation felt really nice. And I gotta say, the authenticity of like helping each other for all the groups to me felt really solid and authentic. So I don't know, I'm just really appreciative for what's happening, what I observed. I thought it was great. And that doesn't mean that there aren't things we can do differently, but I want to check in. Hopefully you've had a chance to talk about this a little bit, but what worked out about the process? So let's start process. Let's not talk yet about like what you learned, but just moving ahead to our next micro lesson, which will be in a couple of weeks. What about the process worked? Or did you appreciate? Just shout it out.
I like how we can discuss that in small groups because we feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
But kind of pretending that we were fourth grade students or first grade students, whatever, it was weird.
Yeah.
I thought that would sound more, I also told that to the girls that
Yeah.
it sounded more mature by, oh, these are my lesson plan and these are my steps and
Mhm.
this is what I intend to do with my kids, or this is what I already applied. And what do you think about that? And
Yeah.
what do you suggest for me to change?
Yeah, so getting ahead to kind of some of the things that were challenging. So yes, and I didn't say this explicitly, but this is a perfectly imperfect replication simulation. Like short of having kids in front of us, this is what we got, right? So yes, I totally agree, Maria, and that is one of the things that can be hardest, which is why I try to emphasize do your best to pretend that you're whoever you are. But yes, also the small groups. Yeah, that's why we do it. Jacob asked, will we ever get a chance to do it whole group? And I just don't see, like, we have to add like 3 weeks to the class, which I'm happy to do. But if one person like delivering to the whole class, it just time wise, I mean, I'm open to the idea if someone can think of a way to make it happen, but it would just take a lot longer. And there are other things I also want to focus on. What else did folks appreciate about the process?
I think just the process in general, going through the process of making a lesson plan and realizing that like we put in all this work, it takes about 5 minutes to do, or just understanding like how much you should be putting in ahead of time, how much in terms of what will best translate actual lesson.
So like the idea that 5 minutes of lesson giving might entail more than 5 minutes of preparation.
Yeah, just kind of figuring out how much you actually need to
And
go through.
and that's a great, so good. I'm glad you recognize that. And there's no, like, different people are different about that. And like my interns right now, that is one of the issues that some of them struggle with the most. It's like, you know, I've got to do it right. I've got to have, you know, like 98 hours in a day, but I don't have 98 hours in a day. So how much time do you invest? But that's why these are shorter, so that you can spend as much time as you need on those 5 to 10 minutes in the future. 10 minutes. Awesome. What else did folks appreciate about the process?
I actually kind of like the teaching part of it. I kind of like half taught some of it and then half explained, which I was like in between, because I didn't bring all the materials, but I feel like I don't usually get to like practice being in that role until I'm just like thrown into it. So it is nice to like get familiar with like the things that we like learn about doing and then like actually like apply them when you're like talking to students or like presenting materials.
I wish I had that, like literally, I wish, I do kind of have it recorded, but that is a perfect encapsulation of the reason, one of the reasons that I asked you to do this. It's, you know, you practice and you do it, you execute, you know, you've done all kinds of theoretical stuff, but this is, you get to just practice. Mostly. Anything else that folks appreciated? I'm gonna move on to what kind of challenges or what kind of changes might folks suggest? So yes, it is a challenge to pretend to be whoever. Like that is one of the imperfections. Another one I'll name to you ahead of time is, you know, teaching a lesson to first graders when you're teaching to college students who actually know the content that you're introducing to the first graders, that can be tough. You know, like because folks know what they know. And similarly, like for secondary, sometimes it's, you know, there's the inverse problem of that. You know, like when you're in your biology class, you've memorized a bunch of stuff. You have you know, it's recent, kind of some of the stuff you've learned, and sometimes that, you know, for you all in here, that's like years and years ago, and that's been replaced by other stuff that you've learned. And so it can be a challenge to match the intended audience with the actual knowledge of the folks. And that's just, you know, I don't know if there's a way to get around that, but that's just a limitation. But what other challenges folks have? Or things that they think might work better?
I don't know if this is necessarily something that would work better, but like one of the things that my group was talking about was how like at this point, like in our careers, we're very used to like doing like the full lesson and like part of a curriculum, and the not having the assessment piece felt like kind of weird. Like it felt like I was just like, okay, well that's the end of my lesson. It just kind of came to like an awkward end, and there was no like real closing, because like that's the place where like the assessment piece would come in. But I know that like that's what we're leading up into, so.
No, I appreciate that, and that's a nice problem to have, where you're like, this isn't what we're like teaching is, like usually you assess.
Yeah, it felt like an incomplete lesson.
Yes, like a chunk, and that's exactly what it is, and it's designed to do that. But no, I totally appreciate that. That is a limitation. What else? What other challenges or things that we might change? Did anyone record? I'm just curious. Did anyone record? Did you record? That's fine. I'm not looking at that. But this is kind of the trial run to get the feel. But I'd encourage you to think about like next time. Yeah, record yourself. Just it's a couple weeks from now. I'll have to look at the calendar and see what I may need to change it. It says something on the syllabus that may need to change based,
Because of this spring break, yeah.
yeah, based on the fact that I pushed this one back a week. So I'll revisit that and I'll let you know. But it's in a couple weeks. And then I guess another question, the feedback process, how was that to have kind of a structure? Was that helpful? Is there anything we want to continue doing or change about that, the way the feedback is given?
The look for part was kind of hard for us. Like everyone just like tell us whatever, you know, I feel like everyone's kind of looking for any feedback.
Right.
It's hard to like be specific about what you want.
Totally fair. Yeah, and that's kind of why at the beginning I kind of sensed that. I was like, oh, that's why I tried to give a couple of examples. But in the second time, does it feel like you have something you might ask folks to look for, like given that you didn't this time, or no? And if that's
See, like where I kind of find that tricky too is if I'm going into a lesson like, okay, I want you to look out for how I do this, I'm going to be like super aware of how I'm doing that part. So then it might not end up meeting
Right. All right, well, maybe next time we'll just say, if there's, instead of come up with something, say, if you want to share with the group, like, what you want folks to look out for, or things you want feedback on, it'll just be optional. That's fair. Anything else we've changed about the feedback, or things that were helpful about feedback? All right, what did folks learn, just real quick, about teaching?
Well, I got really good feedback. I was just showing like a 2 or 3 minute video. And even in that, like, Willie brought up a good point, like, you're teaching like a young audience, you might lose them when they're just like saying all this, like, could you stop it and like say, okay, now what do we know about this vocab word based on like what we talked about and what they're saying, or like just breaking up everything because they really don't have like a super long attention span, and like it's nice to, even like 4 minutes sounds short to me, but it's still like you get lost in those little things.
To a second grader, 4 minutes is like an
Oh,
eternity.
totally, yeah.
Yeah, so like, make sure that the content is age appropriate interest level.
Yeah,
it's
and
not
like
structured,
Hannah
yeah.
took like a song and added like hand movements and motion, so making it more engaging, like taking that next step to like,
Mhm.
oh, have this to like fill out while doing it, or that like goes with it, or hand motions, or saying it out loud as it's saying those vocab words, something like that.
Mhm. What else did folks learn about teaching?
We also discussed about the importance of making connections with the students. And we talked about that because Olivia gave a very good example of feedback on time. I mean, she asked it something and Lily said the right answer. And she like, please, Lily, yeah, that's what you were right.
Hmm.
And she changed her voice tone and it's like, great job. Kind of like, and they also comment when I was showing my lesson plan, because they have this need, as we were talking about elementary school, they have this need of showing off what they are doing and receive the feedback about it. So
Mhm.
basically that, making connections and giving feedback.
Got it. What else did folks learn? Thank you. Did anyone realize, kind of as they were teaching, like, whoa, too much, like over plan?
I guess I
Okay.
kind of had that because I had like mine was the building the boat thing, so I had them like build a boat at first, but I've also like realized that sometimes certain children need to be challenged like with certain activities, so I had a challenge part to my activity, which was like putting weight on the boat.
Mhm.
And I just realized that there needed to be more time for the actual boat building before I challenged them.
Mhm.
So just having to like swap what I was doing and how much time I was giving them.
That was, I forget which one of you talked about, but yeah, maybe more time. That the time was one of the more stressful things, having just 3 to 5 minutes. I get that, and so that's why the next one will be a little bit longer.
I think the planning coupled with the time is like, makes it so difficult. Like I had some things that I didn't even touch on at all, and then I had some things that I was like, I spending too much time on this because I'm watching the clock, like gonna move on, and I don't know. I think it's hard to set a limit, a time limit on a lesson. It'd be easier to set like a minimum.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and especially secondary folks, like there is a limit, and so that is one of the hard parts about teaching, is figuring out like what's going to take what amount of time. Well, I hope this was helpful just to get here. I mean, really the goal here was to have some fun, get some practice and get a feel for what these micro lessons are about. The next one, so the reason I asked that question is anyone bite off more than they get chew or do too much. The next one you don't need to think about this too much right now, but I'll give you the preview. It's going to be, I want you to focus on something mercilessly small and ruthlessly specific, like a single thing that you're going to teach, as opposed to, so like, Lexi, I'll use your example since you brought up time. Like if you're, oh no, actually, I mean, I view yours as kind of similar to the helicopter thing that I did with you, I think on the first day. Like, when I did that, like I was not very ruthlessly specific about what I wanted to teach you. Of course, I had longer amount of time because I'm in charge of the class, but like for 5 minutes, like what would I do with that? I would have to decide, is this about making mistakes and learning from them? Is that a single small specific thing? Is this about figuring out, you know, comparing the difference between length of helicopter blade and length of stem, like comparing those ratios? Like I would have to be really precise about teaching that. So instead of just saying, hey, just use these helicopters, just go make them work, I might, in those just 5 minutes, I'd say, figure out which is, I might be really specific and say, which is more important? The length of the helicopter blades or the length of the stem on the helicopter? I might ask a really short, specific question because, you know, in 5 minutes, it really is not a lot of time. And one of the things that I often see with teachers in the past and interns now and just teachers generally is it's actually really hard to narrow down one small thing that you're about. And so the next one is about that. It's about just getting really specific and being, because we want to include everything. And there's a lot of interesting things, but we don't have time. And if we try to include everything, it's almost like we include nothing because the kids are like, whoa, there's all this and there's all that. There's a lot of, I don't want to say distractions because they're interesting, but it's just not as effective a delivery if you try to include everything that kind of the ragu that's in there model. So the next one will be, and we'll talk more about that in a couple of weeks, but will be about something similar. Awesome. Okay. So it's 7:50. So I think what we'll do, so number one, let me just, I don't have visual supports for this. So the discussion about discussions, two things that I took away from it were number one of the things that wasn't, that acted as a barrier to a lot of you was just the format, the means by which these Canvas discussions have asked you to express self. And so writing, there was a lot about tone. So I mean, basically the message I heard was, you know, some folks love writing and are really good at conveying their thoughts in writing. A lot of folks are not. And then there's this interpretation of tone. And so some of the suggestions were, well, what if I was speaking, or what if I had a video, or what if we had different options for expression? Who mentioned? Someone mentioned Flipgrid. Who was that? Anyone in here, maybe? So I guess I'd say it like this. So one of the tools, or one of the things that I take away from the discussion is, and it was one of these like duh moments, not like Tom Joe. One of these like duh moments is the means by which I'm asking you to interact and express yourself is just not effective. And so in terms of tools that could be used to do that, there's Canvas, but there's also a ton of much more user-friendly options. And so there's Flipgrid, which is okay. There's like, and these are tools that you have an option to video record, write, draw, audio record, or there's, you know, whatever else, or even, you know, like pull in other images that capture your thinking, the memes or whatever. But with the goal of being multiple means of expression in the discussion, there's Flipgrid, there's the one that I always do. The word I'm spacing on it. Padlet. Anyone use Padlet ever? And there is a gajillion others as well, but I wanted to ask you all if in your classes there are tools that have been used, because I think that's one of the key things is We either gotta use Canvas differently or find a different, more user-friendly tool to give you options to express yourself more authentically and have a more authentic dialogue. So have other folks used in other classes or just in their life, easier to use conversation tools that they can think of besides Flipgrid and Padlet?
A lot of my classes just have like in-person discussions now. Like we had a lot of like discussion boards online last year, I think, but we do like in-class discussions that will like turn into like pairing or grouping where like in my smaller classes we'll just open it up and kind of like bounce ideas off each
So
other.
actually, yeah, actual time. So,
One of my classes will like come up with questions that we have that we want to like look into together or like on our own, and then we'll like discuss them together and like kind of challenge each other based off the material. So we'll bring those questions that we came up with at home based on the material or video or whatever. And then
So, and that was the other thing is like, the questions are kind of thing, not boring, but like someone said, I literally feel like I'm saying the same thing in all three of my discussion boards each week. So the authenticity of the questions, like, they're my questions, not your questions. So that was the other thing that stood out to me is figuring out a way to make what you're talking about more engaging. And are there any other thoughts that folks kind of, as they look through people's, their group's discussion that is worth mentioning? Okay. All right, so here's what you're gonna do. So we didn't get to my dumpster fire yet. But you're gonna get to it in your discussion. So I am going to I'll do I'll record myself teaching something, and it'll be a dumpster fire. It's gonna be awful. But more importantly, like, what about it is gonna be awful? There's gonna be good components about it, I think. But I'm gonna ask you to discuss a specific, like how it'll be all UDL. There'll be a couple questions about it. But what I think is gonna change about it is I've got to figure out what tool to have you use in this to make the means by which you express yourself a little more authentic. So I guess I'd say it like this. This is probably a couple weeks discussion about discussions, and I'm gonna try a tool. I gotta figure out a couple things. I gotta do some research myself, but I'm gonna ask you to discuss the discussion using a tool that I don't yet know the name of, and process that I don't yet know the name of, but it'll be about the dumpster fire that I share with you. And then next week we'll talk about like, hey, how is that platform? What can we do? And so hopefully it'll make discussions feel more authentic, and we will eliminate some barriers and maybe identify some new ones to just continue to improve this throughout the semester so it feels more like a real conversation. Okay, then finally, final project over. I don't think I've shared the final project in class, have I? Okay, so when people see the final project, sometimes they can feel overwhelmed. Let me just pull it straight from actually the final project folder link. So this is on your Canvas site. There's a final project folder. And it has what is essentially going to be there'll be some changes to each of these parts, but this has most of the details the same as they will be for you. These are from last semester. But I think the overview is, let's see how well we can do this in 2 minutes. Well, that's not showing up very well. The project, so the final project, the goal is to, it's another imperfect simulation of what it's like to plan a year. So in the first couple of weeks, we talked a lot about like, yeah, school science, the way that we learned it, decontextualize dots that aren't connected. How do we plan a year where dots are connected? So it's an imperfect attempt to simulate that. So what you are going to do is you're going to choose a grade level, or for secondary folks, a content area like life science. And for that, there's three main parts. So first you start with a whole year overview, like what is in the year of third grade science? What is in life science at the high school? What is in physical? Whatever you choose. So that's this first part that you're going to draft this week. It's not the final project one that you're going to do, but I'm just going to ask you to take a look at the year, and I'll share the resources, some resources with you, but I'm going to encourage you to Google the, I'm almost inclined to not share anything with you and just say Google the heck out of it, because you'll be less dependent on my stuff, but I also want you to learn the standards a little bit. But I would also say Google the heck out of what's in your chosen year, but you got to choose a year, and you're just basically going to provide an overview of what's interesting, what students learn, and the most important thing, put it in your own words and make it your own. That doesn't mean you can't use other people's ideas, but as much as you can, make it your own words, because that's the way you kind of learn it. Also keep in mind that what you submit next week is going to be a draft. Like, you're going to change it. I've never seen a first draft FP1 stay the same throughout the year. It'll evolve. And some people might even change the grade level if they do it. Yes.
Would this,
Yeah.
is this kind of like what we like just prearrange what we want to do for the year, or should we be following NGSS?
Yes. So great question. So yes. So you'll choose. So you'll have to know what the NGSS, what the state standards are for third grade. Like, what do students learn in third grade science? And I'll lay it out pretty clear. This is another week to watch the video, and I'll explain it a little further since we're running out of time here. But yeah, it's just the whole year. So you're going to start with the whole year. The next section, you'll choose so you'll start what is in the year, and then you'll break it out into units that make sense to you, however many that is. Then, so that's what you're going to draft this week. And then the next couple weeks down the road, after we study understanding by design, you'll design a unit. You'll choose one unit from your year, not all the units, just one unit to focus on, and you'll design that. And then after a couple more weeks, you'll choose a couple lesson plans from that unit, and you'll fully develop those. So you start big at the whole year. Then you take a chunk of that, because I don't want you to write 180 lesson plans. So you start big with the what's in the year and what's interesting. Then you choose a unit, work on that. Then you choose 1 to 3 lesson plans. We'll see how it goes in terms of the time that we have to do that. So that's the project overview. This year, or this week, all you're doing is the whole year. So you're going to choose a grade. I'll give you some resources, but I would also encourage you to go elsewhere, because the resources I give you are dry. Because I want you to have those, and then just find out what else is out there. Again, one of the main goals is find what's interesting. What's interesting in the third grade that you chose? What's interesting in the first grade? So that is the final project, and I'll post this momentarily. Any questions before you go? Sorry, I kept you a few minutes late. All right. Okay. Nice job in the micro lesson. I give a high five, spread germs the old fashioned way, but you know, I want to spread germs the old fashioned way.
Thank you. Have a good soda.
Oh, yes, that's right. No, Lily. Look at me. Look at me. Wait, you can't move. Olivia. Macy. No, Jacob. Wait. You did, you totally. Why would you do that?
What?
But I know,
Yeah.
yes, and Ally, and what is your last name?
It's Armenian. Yeah, I don't know. Armenian.
No, my friend, Missourian, a friend who's a family friend. The Missourian also Armenian.
Yeah, I am.
All right, Alex. Hi, Jennifer, and hi, Jessica,
They made something up.
and goodbye, Hannah.
Yes. Goodbye, Paul.
And goodbye, Lexi, and goodbye, Julianne. Yeah, good. That really was, I really loved watching your all's lessons tonight and the way you interacted. That was really lovely. Adios. You too, Lexi. Yeah, enjoy snow day. You doing anything? You going skiing or anything?
Working morning.
Where do you work?
Philly.
Where?
That I'm home.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Sounds, gotta get your money somehow, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's convenient.
Yeah. All right, take care.